Welcome to the second day of the induction program. We now have a panel discussion on the topic Corporate Expectations from Management Graduates. It's my pleasure to introduce the panelists for the discussion. May I request Professor Sudhir to escort the panelists on the dais, please. Thank you, Professor Sudhir. We have with us Mr. Anubrato Mukherjee, Lead iCare International at Titan. Anubrato is an alumnus of the batch 2016. He started off his career with Titan and has been with the firm ever since. He has a total work experience of 7 years at Titan, holding positions like ABM, Business Manager, and lead roles. Our second panelist is Mr. Natarajan Ramani, Executive VP and Chief Products Officer at TransUnion Sibyl. Natarajan is an alumnus of batch 2006. He is currently holding the position of EVP and Head Regional Solutions. Previously, he has worked in HDFC Bank for 15 years. We also have with us Mr. Sridhar Tonse, who would be moderating the panel discussion. Mr. Sridhar has been an entrepreneur, consultant, strategy and investment advisor in the areas of technology, playing specific roles such as product manager, analyst, and marketer at different points in his career, spanning 30 years across 8 countries. Sridhar is the CEO and founder of Tonse Telecom, a research, analysis, and consulting organization focusing on the telecom sector since 2005. Sridhar has built 3 companies so far, sold 1, shut down 1, and runs the other. From inception till 2015, Tonse Telecom became the foremost player in consulting and advisory space for the telecom sector with over 175 consulting projects delivered. The company's services team was merged into a French analyst company in 2015. Sridhar continues to provide consulting services to startups. He is an advisor on board for a technology startup in the education and wireless sectors. He is also an educator and provides digital coaching services. He is a published author with Amazon and writes on technology, markets, and where spirituality meets science. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction. Firstly, I want to thank all the faculty and others who had the opportunity to actually interact and have me here as a part of this event. So thank you so much, Dr. Sudhir, Dr. Madhu, who's not here, and Dr. Aditya, who's not here as well. Congratulations. Before I begin, let me congratulate all of you. You know, today is actually a momentous day for all of you. If you remember, like the first day of your school, or first day of university, or first day of your high school, where you're entering a new campus with lots of hopes, aspirations, and you're banking on this temple of knowledge that you're entering, in this case TAPME, to prepare you for the world outside, to prepare you further, to chisel you and take you into the next level. So I want to just leave a few thoughts with you, which I'm pretty sure will encourage you. First of all, some of the fundamental things that will be in mind today for you as you enter this, because you're making a commitment at this point in your career, in your life, that you want to create the necessary amendments, enhancements to your persona, your profile, your personality, that will make it easy for you to access the opportunities outside, correct? And so, if you bring it to the least common denominator, you will be thinking of, what should I get at the end of my 2-year program? And most of the times, the simple answer to this is a lucrative package, a good campus offer, a nice opportunity, a branded position so that you can go and revel into the corporate world. Correct? Yes. But if you ask me, if that is what you get, then I'll be somewhat disappointed. Do you want to know why? Because you don't know how much opportunity there is, and possibly you're undershooting. if you're undershooting and you get that target, get that achievement, achieve that objective, maybe it's not good enough. So I'm saying, what if you exceed all your expectations? What if you go beyond your wildest expectations after your program and then achieve those? So if you were to do that, would you like to do that? If you want to do that, there are 3 secrets that I want to share with you today. Top 3 secrets with which you will exceed your own expectations of yourselves as you get out of this program. Secret number 1. Secret number 1 is mindset. There are 2 types of mindsets, largely. If you ask anybody from consumer behavioral psychology majors, they will tell you fixed mindset and flexible mindset. So what is a fixed mindset and what are the signals? A fixed mindset is one where you've already decided that this is something I can't do. And the signal of that is typically people that say, yaar, ye humse nahi hoga, ye mere se nahi ho payega, ye hum nahi kar payenge, ye hamare liye nahi hai. You heard that, right? These signals. Who told you that this is something that you cannot do? These are limitations somewhere that you have defined inside your mind. And those are called fixed mindsets, right? On the other hand, you have flexible mindsets. What is a flexible mindset? A flexible mindset is like clay. In the hands of a good artisan, clay becomes art. So you should have a flexible mindset always. Keep in mind, flexible mindsets are not only saving careers, they're saving companies, they're saving brands, they're saving countries. For example, in India, if we did not have a flexible mindset and say during COVID that why don't we just wait for Pfizer or somebody else to deliver the vaccine to us? Instead, we said, let's go ahead with our primitive labs, whatever we have, we'll go ahead and create our own vaccine. This is a flexible mindset that allows you to tap into your resources and create something that saved the country. Secret number 2, skill sets. What is a skill set? So for that, let's go back a couple of years, or maybe even 5 years. For example, in the generation that we kind of grew up, even 10 years ago, what would you would have heard this in school, in college, right? Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. This is what we all grew up with. But today, is knowledge really power? For example, what did the internet do? In one line, the internet democratized the availability of knowledge across the board for everyone. So today, for example, a kid graduating from high school has the same access to research and information as a PhD or a postdoc research scholar. What is the difference? So knowledge may not be power anymore, but the ability to use that knowledge to solve a business problem or a market need is knowledge, is power today. We grew up equating knowledge to marks, but today, if you can build skills that will apply the knowledge you have to solve a business problem, then you've really cracked it. So how does that look? And let's look at an example, right? How does it look when you are talking about skills? Let's say that 2 years from now, you are attending campus interviews and you're sitting in the interview halls. And let's say a subset of this team here, let's say, for example, just for the lack of a better term, I'm just picking BFSI. And let's say that there is a large corporate that's interviewing you, and maybe that cohort, that subset of the cohort, maybe 100, 120 people, and you're actually sitting in that class, in that interview, and the question you've been asked towards the end is, so tell me, why should I hire you? Right? And so you don't want to say things like, sir, I will put in 18 hours a day, I don't want, you can give me 1% less increment, all that stuff, right? You don't want to say that. because everybody else could say the same thing. But consider this. You are going to say, sir, you give me the balance sheet and financial statements of any company listed. I'm going to give you back a 5-year projection of this company's performance with a comparison of industry ratios for that sector and give you 3 top candidates for a potential M&A. And all of this I will do with my ChatGPT prompts in the next 5 minutes, and I don't think you'll have anybody else in this cohort doing this. Is that a good answer? Yeah? These are skill sets. You need to create those skill sets. This is number 2. Secret number 3, tool sets. So what is the difference between skill set and tool sets? Skill sets are good, but you will not be able to apply at scale. You need tools to be able to really apply skill set at scale. Because when you're talking about large corporates, you're talking about industry-wide appeal, small deltas may not make a difference. It is necessary, but to make a difference, to make an impact, you need to apply things at scale. When you have to apply things at anything at scale, you need to automate, or you need toolkits or tool sets. So the tool sets industry is exploding. For example, as a part of a small project we were doing for a US VC firm middle of last year, and I was doing a small portion of that, and I was shocked. We found out from research that 180 companies that were building marketing automation tools. 180 companies. And we had another update required this year in the JFM quarter. And when we went back, this number has gone to 250. And many of the original 180 odd companies no longer exist. So that is the rate at which innovation is happening. And it's happening in every sector. It's happening in every industry, every sector. So it is up to you how much time you can spend to find out what kind of platforms are going to survive, what are not going to survive. For example, if you look at designing, Canva, Fedora, so many of them have come and become, Fedora I think is a part of Adobe now. So you need to understand and play around with it. There must be at least a top 10 or top 5 toolset companies that will become the masters. And if you catch them now, you'll be able to have a really good edge. You don't need to do 500 things, but you need to, if you're in your own discipline, if you're doing HR, BFSI, finance, marketing, whatever, pick that sector and pick those 3 or 4 tools that you believe will make a difference. End of the day, if the tool disappears, at least you'll be able to apply those skills to another tool, whichever survives. So summary is, number 1 is, louder. Number 2, number 3, excellent. So these are the ones on top of whatever you learn from this haloed institute called TAPME, that will take you miles ahead. I will challenge you that with this combination, you'll become unbeatable. All right? Very good. So on that note, I want to wish all of you all the very best. And if we had some more time, which we may, end of the day, we can maybe exchange some more notes and so on. So can we now move into the panel? Are we okay to do that? All right. So let me quickly pick up some of the key points that we need to discuss today with our August panel here. So I want to just start off with something that you might be wondering. So you're doing all of this. You made some serious commitments in your life, in your career at this point. You've traveled, you've come over, and you're putting pretty much the stake in the ground. The next 2 years, you're going to be here, and you're going to prepare. And you're going to have a variety of experiences. Now, all of this for what? All of this to prepare for a world outside which we don't know how it's going to be, how good, how bad it's going to be. So what are the corporate expectations of us as grads? That is the broad topic today. And I'm pretty sure all of you will be interested. And we have two of your own, our own, like grads of TAPME who are sitting here, who've gone through that phase and are also going through the experiential growth of the corporates. So I want to leave those two questions with you. So we'll start off by saying, do you want to pick broadly? Either of you can start. And give a few points on what do you think, at a high level, are corporate expectations of these boys and girls when they get out of campus? Do you want to pick that?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Well, before I start off, thank you. Thank you for setting the context, and thank you, Aparna ma'am, for the introduction. Well, guys, before I give you simply the, let's say, what do we expect, right? I mean, I can sum it up in a few words or a simple phrase. I'll start off with a couple of stories from my own experience in the last 7 years, okay? Now, when I stepped into the corporate world, the first assignment that I got was that of an area business manager for the Titan I Plus brand in Mumbai, okay? Now, it was a fairly important market for the company. The brand was important and it used to generate a certain revenue. And suddenly I have a team of 60 odd direct and indirect reportees, and I have to manage this business, okay? I was very excited that all the concepts that I have learned in the B school, I'll start applying and all of that. I go, and the challenges that I face, okay, I found them to be so trivial, okay? I thought a guy misses his train and hence the store opens late and we are given a fine for that. Someone is not able to come to the store because of something happens, because of some personal reasons. The laptop at the store is not working and hence the billing is not happening on time and the customer is unhappy. A customer, because of Mumbai rains, possibly slipped on the mat because it was not cleaned properly. There are issues like water dripping at the back side of the office. And I'm like, I did MBA to do all of this? I'm like, wasn't I supposed to make strategies and implement and, make big business presentations? So guys, it's a little different in the outside world, okay? I'm not saying you will not do all of that. We all do. But before you, make some suggestions and pitch it to the management, you need to get your hands dirty into the operations of any business. This is applicable for any business or any function that you go in. You have to go to the depths of it, understand every single element that builds up that function or business. So I think this would be the first competency that you should have the ability to go into the details and understand fully. I think second one, which is a bit related to what I just said, is you should be comfortable with ambiguity, okay? I don't know how many of you know this term called VUCA, V-U-C-A. Do you know the full form of this? So VUCA, we live in a VUCA world, we say. VUCA is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, correct? So I can make a 5-year plan, right? But today, in today's world, 5-year plans are largely a vision, right? It is not necessarily a plan because the means to achieve a 5-year plan can change quarter over quarter. So you could be putting your heart and soul on something, okay, this is very close to me, this is what I've studied, and this is what I'm working for 6 months, and overnight, you may have to do something else, and you have to achieve the same objective in 1 month, right? I think COVID was a great example where overnight we had to change all the strategies and be ready ready for a new world. So you should be very comfortable dealing with ambiguity and make yourself as agile as possible to take whatever the world throws at you. So yeah, these would be two of my things that I would want to start off with.
Thank you. I just give it. By the way, the VUCA equivalent in the university language is out of syllabus.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I thank the TAPME fraternity to call me over here and address you guys. And there is a secret which I'm going to tell you, right? Do you know what's the common between the two panelists here? Any wild guesses? Sorry? Okay. So, and I was speaking to one of the professors just before this, right? So they said they like to call alums because students don't listen to professors, right? So first and foremost advice is please do listen to your professors. I think they have worlds of wisdom on them, and it's a testimony of what I have gone through. The common thing between the two panelists are we both are place commerce, right? So we've dealt with corporates when we were in the placement committee, and now we are on the other side. Okay, corporate expectations. I'm not going to talk straight into corporate expectations. I'm going to slightly different, right? What are the expectations your parents have of you? Right? It's exactly similar to what corporates have of you, or exactly same as what institutes have of you, right? One is they want you to be ethical. Parents also want you to be ethical, not tell lies, right? They want you to do well in your life. So corporates also want all of their employees to do well in their lives. And obviously, as they said, you have to learn from the scratch. So parents teach you right from beginning, from your first steps to kindergarten, to school, to college, right? That's exactly what corporates also do to employees. Now, what does corporates, when corporates come to institutes for hiring, and I've been privileged to come for placements right since I passed out. So I passed out in 2006, and 2007 onwards I've been doing placements many years in TAPME also. And something which I really like, and which I like to see in students particularly, is how practical they are. It's not about only theory, it's about applicability of the theory in the practical world. That's one of the key things what corporates look for. Second is adaptability. You have to be adaptable to situations. You cannot feel that if you are put in a certain situation, you will be in that situation and not try out something new. So you have to be adaptable to do something different. Third is willingness to learn and willingness to change, which is very similar to what adaptive the fellow panelist said. And that's important because I'll give you my personal experience, right? So in my 15 years or 16 years of my career in HDFC Bank, I don't think I've done the same role for more than 2.5 years. So I used to challenge myself to do something which is different every time. And that's going to be a testament for you in your 2 years, because you're going to learn a lot of theory, you're going to learn a lot of case studies, a lot of practicals. But what you should also do apart from that is to do something which stretches your mind, which stretches your imagination, which you are uncomfortable with. For example, if they are commerce here and they don't know coding, right, they should learn coding. You should stretch yourself, you should reimagine yourself. I was a commerce grad, but my 17 years of my career has been analytics, which is all about coding and data. So in terms of that, you have to do something which stretches your mind, stretches your boundaries, and that's what corporates look for when they assess candidates when they come for interviews. We need to see people who are adaptive. We need to see people who have tried out multiple things, even if they have failed. No harm. Even if they have failed, there is no harm in trying out new things and all the things what I said earlier. Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit, and now we'll have you start, and then we'll go to him. In terms of competencies and skill sets, in a rapidly changing world, and you know how much, and you're in the middle of it, right, as a credit bureau. So it's hard as such for corporates and people inside the corporates to maintain, to be in sync with the level of change happening, like ChatGPT or any of those, OpenAI or any other technological change. You can no longer see it as a distant thing that's going to happen tomorrow because it's already happening. And if you don't have it, you'll lose competitive edge. When that is the challenge for corporates, how do you expect college grads that are coming out to be equipped with it? Is that a reverse kind of a problem? Because corporates need it, students need it, but then how do you see that issue, and how do you guys handle it?
Yeah. So I think the answer lies to the first three statements what you made, right? So it's mindset, skill set, and rule set. Now, obviously, there is the entire thing of ChatGPT on OpenAI. You can't resist a change, right? There will be change in the industry. There will be disruption in the industry. The jobs what you see today may not exist 2 years later, right? And that's something which we all think of on a day-to-day basis as corporates, because as corporates, we are responsible for both the top line and the bottom line. So they will take efficiency projects, they will take projects wherein you will see a certain job or a certain profile which existed 5 years ago is not existing today. But what do students do then, right? So are students good enough to identify, visualize what's going to be important 5 years later and then start working on it? I think it's going to be difficult. When I passed out in 2006, I didn't know what is going to be the in thing in 2008, 9, 10. I think same with Anubrata. I think when he passed out in 2016, he will not know what's important. He never knew there was going to be a ChatGPT in 2023. So we don't prepare for it, right? So what do? So you accept it. So you accept it, and then you make your work, you make your learnings around that piece so that you use that to your own advantage. For example, the answer which was given earlier, that if you are asked a question, how do you answer that question? You can use that same ChatGPT to answer that question brilliantly and set the tone on what you can do on top of the ChatGPT, right? Or top of OpenAI. So I think the most important thing, it's going to be it's not going to be easy for both corporates, students, MBA institutes. It's going to be a Herculean task to keep up to the pace. The pace is evolving rapidly, but the only way to live with the pace is to accept it, adapt it, and work towards it. So that's why the same point which I said earlier, you should learn things which you don't know today. You can't keep on honing your skill sets which you are better off. I can give tons and tons of examples in sports, wherein you have cricketers who are extremely good on one side of the play. They are called gods of offside. But who are the gods of cricket? The gods of cricket are the ones who can play at any place, any field, any kind of situations. That's the thing which students also need to work towards and prepare themselves for.
That is so true. That is so true. So let me ask you the same question, right? As a market-facing consumer brand that has revolutionized multiple sectors, from watches to eyewear to jewelry, you probably face this even more, right? How do you deal with that level of change in the sector? And therefore, what would you expect from students that are coming in? Do you prefer guys that already have exposure to new skills? Or are you having a program that will make sure that everybody syncs up and learns? Can you just throw some light on that?
Sure. So I feel it's very difficult and close to impossible for each individual to master every skill, right? It's just not going to be possible, right? So, and to prepare for the skills that we don't even know how what the world is going to throw at you, it's going to be even more challenging. So how we have gone about some of these things, and how I personally have gone about, and I would request all of you to think about this, is, see, the sooner you realize that you cannot win this world alone. You will be more appreciative of what others do, and you will be more empathetic towards their work. And the sooner you make yourself, you put yourself in a position that I am here to learn and constantly learn, you will be able to find the right people for the right job. Okay? So, even if I don't know coding for that matter, even if I don't know how to use some of the latest AI tools, or if I don't know how to run multiple financial ratios analysis on different financial statements, if I am ready to go to people, seek help, and do the integration role, that also is good enough. Now, this is a very important soft skills. So what I'm trying to say is, to combat many of the hard skills problem, if you have certain very strong soft skills, you can still do it. Okay? So if you are able to network really well, if you are able to, let's say, strike up a relationship with people with few impactful conversations, they would be more than happy to help you. And you will be able to sum up all their work and still achieve the common objective. So even in Titan, I think we have always started as a brick and mortar concept, but we have embraced technology. So we got people from outside world, we got vendors, we got consultants, but the people who manage them and people who got the work done by them are still within the company itself. They may not be really good at those skills, but we managed to outsource this from the outside world by first understanding that this is what we need. We made ourselves, vulnerable, and we understood that this is something that we cannot grow overnight, and we got it done. Right? So I would say this can be one of the strategies to combat in an ever-changing world where skills also constantly change.
So I have one thing to add. Does anyone in the audience know the full phrase of jack of all trades? After that?
Master of none.
Okay, so it's jack of all trades, master of none, but often times better than one, right? So that's the crux of what most of us will be talking, is that you don't need to be a master of at everything, but at least you should know stuff which you are able to leverage.
Beautiful. I think if you distill this discussion, it probably comes to one thing, which is adaptability. In other words, you need to have, what is the key to adaptability? A flexible mindset is key to adaptability. If you're shutting doors and saying, this is not for me, I don't care, then you might not just miss opportunities, you will be somewhat isolated because the rest of the world will move on. And I just remembered something I want to share here, and I'm breaking this protocol in terms of the actual questions. I think this is interesting. And I don't even know how many of you will know this, and many of you probably not even born by that time. I'm talking about 1994. There's this general impression that all of us think that there is somebody out there who's super smart, who knows it all, who's cracked it, who's sorted it, who knows everything. But please understand that even the big guys like Bill Gates and the big companies like Google are frequently screwing up. They're frequently making mistakes. They're learning from others. And you can go back and check this after this session whenever you have time. Google on something called the right angle email. It's called the right turn email from Bill Gates. You'll also find it in the Gates Insider notes that Bill Gates writes. In 1994, believe it or not, Bill Gates acknowledged that he had completely missed the internet bus, right? He didn't believe that the internet would happen. He laughed at Steve, he laughed at others. There was a company at that time called Netscape. Netscape was a browser equivalent of what we have today, of Chrome. And Netscape was an app that would allow peer-to-peer music sharing. And it destroyed that industry, and music became a profitless industry, and therefore eventually the regulators came and shut it down. But that is not the point. The point is, Bill Gates laughed at Netscape's founder, I forget his, Mark Anderson. He said, you know, there's no such thing that's going to impact us. We are always going to be a paid software that's going to sit inside the CPU. And everybody has to pay for Windows because it'll run from the machine. And in 1994, suddenly he realized that the internet is going to destroy him if he doesn't adapt. And he sent out this famous email called right turn email, where he says that any business, any product inside Microsoft that is not internet roadmap friendly will not be funded anymore. And he said all activities that do not have anything to do with internet will stop. And if you guys want to do it, you can leave the company or we'll stop funding that activity. So in other words, a big, fundamentally, massive change that is going to transform the planet for the next 2 decades was missed by someone like Bill Gates. So it's not that everybody is, out there is a genius. In fact, nobody is. Everybody is figuring out along the way. And who knows, something that you're coming up with today might change the world tomorrow. But you should have the perseverance to continue it and the faith to believe in it. That's it. Okay, so sorry about that diversion. I thought it was useful. So let's go to another area that we want to talk about. And maybe, interestingly, it is leading to that. This point is talking about how to choose your careers in a changing world. I think this is 1 hour each on this. But, feel free to share your thoughts. Who wants to go first? Basically, I'll just read it as is. It says, careers in a new and changing world, what careers are possible and how to choose by following your own passion for building the brand you.
Okay, I'll take a shot at it first. It's going to be one of the most complex and difficult questions, but we can talk for hours, right? Now, what's the best career? Do I know what's my best career? I think it's no. I don't think I know as of now what's my best career is, and it's going to be very much applicable for all of you also when you do your 2 years journey. What I would really urge all of you in your next 2 years of your journey is to again start reading a lot, start looking at various aspects, and you will find out something which you really love. For example, I used to be a big fan, big believer. I used to love numbers, and anything to do with numbers, I used to always go into that. For example, I don't know if you still have BrandScan here, but BrandScan was a completely marketing project, and I was a finance professional. But there was something to do with numbers, and I joined BrandScan as one of the LSG members we used to call at that point in time. So anything which was numbers, I used to ensure that I be part of it to learn from it. So in terms of in the changing world, what should be a career? First is, all of you, I'm sure, will have your own hobby, will have some amount of passion of what you like to do. You need to take that aside and keep it separately. And then you start learning in your management, in your 2 years of management, obviously you will learn multiple subjects, multiple topics. You will be abreast with current issues, current affairs. You need to identify, say, 3-4 things which really interest you a lot. You have to do well in everything, believe me, for getting good grades. But you also need to identify 2-3 things which really makes you wake up in the night and work on it. Once you have these 3 things separate, you have your passion. See what can bring these 2 together. It can be very, very different. For example, I can talk about marketing, I can talk about finance, I can talk about operations, I can talk about HR. So for example, if you say, I love talking to people, that's something which I'm a complete extrovert. I love talking and conversing with people. Then there are 2 career options for you, right? Or 3. So maybe as an HR, because there in HR you want to talk to a lot of people. Marketing, you talk to a lot of people. Okay, now people will rule out finance because finance is more number crunching, the mindset, right? But finance is also about talking about people. If you get into something like an investment banking, if you get something like into treasury, you have to talk to people to get deals. So if you like that, then you have decided that these 3 courses or these 3 areas is something which I can focus on. Then you start learning about courses, start learning about various subjects, and then you try and identify passion. And then you try and mix the 2 to arrive at the right career for you. Today, there are multiple careers. Today, there are, when I joined the bank, we had very fixed careers of risk management, either an underwriter or a credit policy or analytics. Now today you have, even within analytics, you have multiple fields. You have risk, you have marketing, you have pricing, and you go on and on. So each of this becomes a very differential skill set which anyone of you can do. Same in terms of, I think, B2B or in terms of B2C, you have multiple fields and multiple domains. So I think it's going to be an evolving phase. I don't think you will have the answer on day one, but at the end of 12th month or 15th month, you should have a fair bit of understanding and answer. And if you don't have that answer, right, if you don't have the answer at that point in time also, please reach out to your professors, please reach out to your seniors, please reach out to your mentors who can help and guide you what should be your career line.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, so indeed it's a difficult one. We are not sitting here with crystal balls where we, prophesize that what careers come up in the future and all of that. So I'll not go there. There are two aspects that I would want to cover. One is in a world filled with AI, be more human. Okay? Always ask yourself if this is something that can be done by AI already, how can I improve it? So to give you an example, I was doing this, I was playing around with some of these, AI tools, and a very simple thing like a chat GPT gave me a different answer, Bard gave me a different answer. I was parallelly looking up another AI tool which can simplify my Excel sheet and fill up some of the cells and also run some cluster analysis and all of that. So here I was as a human using 5 or 6 different AI tools and arriving at an answer, right? Now, do you think there would be another AI software which will be using 5, 6 different AI tools and giving you that answer? Maybe yes, but as of now, this is the value addition that you can do, right? So I would say use the human intelligence to supersede some of these AI things that are happening, and you will be a step ahead. Second point is don't think about the career at all. Okay, I mean we will pass the we'll cross the bridge when it comes. Try maximizing your learning here in this 2-year course, and if you go by the attitude that I need to learn all aspects of management, you will be at a far better you will be far better employable than the rest of the peers. Yeah, to give you an example, this is something that I was discussing before we came on stage. When we enter, we think that okay, marketing is something that I want to do. Finance mein kya rakha hai? Finance, I don't understand it anyway. Or you may say, why does a marketer need to understand supply chain? It's okay. Or why does a finance guy need to need to understand HR? As you grow and as you unlock the entire value chain, right? You will be exposed to the value chain concept eventually, but just make a note of this. You will be utilizing all parts of the value chain, right? And that is when your learning across all these functions will really help. If you tend to choose a role like that of an entrepreneur, right? Then from day one, you will have to do everything. An entrepreneur does her own accounting. She will, let's say, she will do the recruitment as well. She would call up the supply chain guy, follow up on orders, get vendors onboarded, everything. So if you can maximize your time here in the campus, learning about all the different functions that you are being taught on, you will be far more employable, and you can then decide 2 years later what kind of career you want to choose.
Yeah, that was interesting. Actually, I was about to bring that up, Nubroto. I want to ask you or yourself, how different would your response be if you were working with a startup? Currently, the view is very strongly of a large corporate, which is excellent. But how would it be very different? Because I'm sure some of this audience would probably end up in startups. So do you think, any thoughts on that? Would it be very different from where you are today?
So yeah, so it's a mindset thing again. So I'll again give the example. When I started my career in 2006, I had actually joined a startup within an established organization. I think the same thing is applicable now because he is starting something new which is not there in an established organization. So for example, when I started in 2006, we never had an analytics team or we never had a Basel II team, and it was a startup within that, and that's the theme which my supervisors drived at that point in time, that you are a startup within an organization, and so how do you deal with. So there's an interesting concept of two forums, right? One is a specialist and one is a generalist, right? So you need to figure out what is your right spectrum, but as the worlds are evolving rapidly, my take is that there will be more of generalists in the economy, in the country, than being specialists. The specialists obviously are important, but if you want to become advanced in your career, you have to move from a more specialist to a generalist. But yeah, but in terms of startup, I think it remains more or less the same, given that obviously in a startup, you have to do multiple things. You're not fixated in doing a particular thing or a particular function. You have to do finance, you have to do marketing, you have to do operations, and thereby you get a good view of everything in an organization. The same thing is very much applicable for newer roles within an established organization also.
Actually, Sridhar, even for me, while I work for a large company, but what I am currently building is a startup of my own within the company, right? So it does not necessarily have the same assets, competencies, the culture, that the India business already has. So you have to get your hands into everything, right? Another interesting way which I have applied in my life to make yourself more ready for a generalist kind of a role or a fast-paced startup kind of a role is if you grasp some of the basics of business in your own life. I'll give you an example. In fact, I'm asking you this question. I mean, I'm keep giving this question to the audience. Can you tell me the cost of doing this setup today? So we are doing an event here, right? So there is lights, you have to do a booking here, there is camera, there is, flex, there are so many things, right? So businesses are all around you. So if I have to ask you a question that can you arrive at the cost of doing this event? Will you be able to look around, observe, grasp everything, put it down on a sheet of paper and arrive at a number? Okay? So we will ask this later, and then later on we will try to match it with the actual number. But my point here is simple. Whenever you go out, you will see businesses all around you. Okay? And if you do this practice, that this fruit seller is selling this fruit at this amount, he sits here from 9 to evening 6, these are the number of customers who come, this is the average order that each customer gives, hence this is the revenue that he gets, and these are his costs. So if you can develop this mindset of looking at the world a bit differently, you will be much better prepared for the business world out there.
Awesome. I like that. I think observation is key everywhere. All right. So, shall we do one thing now? Shall we, can we open the floor for questions now, you think? Yeah? Shall we do that, Dr. Naik? Yeah. All right. So, do we have some microphones? So, we have a few minutes, and there are some folks, some of our friends with the microphones. So, we will throw it open for questions. Please start. just state your name and whatever question you have, and if you would like anybody to pick up that question, point to that. Otherwise, generally, we'll have a response from this side.
Hi sir, my name is Paras. Good morning. I want to ask a question like sir mentioned about the flooring and all those things. Titan share rose from 2400 to selling around 2800 right now. And I read a report that states that Lenskart sales, 73% of Lenskart sales comes from stores. And you mentioned that we are moving more of online world. So do you think that opening a store is more important right now than shopping online? Because we are seeing that online trending is all over the world. But still Lenskart plays an important role through offline stores only. So what are your views on this?
Yeah, so this is an interesting piece. Whether the world will move into an online retailing and the offline will be dead. In India, the percentage is possibly, the last that I read was less than 2 or 3%, right, of the overall retail space that has now moved to online. This will certainly grow, but it is not that it is going to eat up the offline completely. What it does instead is it forces the offline retail to innovate more. Okay, so for example, if I can get everything ordered on my phone, what are the reasons that you are giving me to still come to a store, right? And that is where we have innovated, and we have added a lot more elements into the customer experience, wherein when a customer walks in, starting from, let's say, we try to create a much better space for a customer to experience the product and services, which otherwise cannot be done on a 5-inch screen, right? And this is something that we may not have done had the online piece not come. So this is one of the reasons, one of the things which makes us innovate more, and I think this is the direction in which the offline retailing will also move. It will move more into the experiential space, and the more transactional and commoditized products or services will stay on the online space.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, that's a great, it's an internal response since the question was Titan specific. But if you apply this to all brands, I think the mix of offline plus online will prevail, because there is an offline element of an experience that you want to pick and you want to feel and go through that. And I think that difference will continue. And my feeling is that brands will continue to innovate on the offline world because they want to keep that human touch alive.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely true in a financial space also. While we see more online transactions happening, but we do see the largest banks and financial institutions opening up more branches also. So there is a human touch which is always important. And given that India is at the cusp of a huge demographic dividend change and all of this happening, I think it's always going to be a balance between online and offline.
Yeah, just to add, since you brought up the finance thing, I remember when Citibank introduced the first ATMs in India, I think back in Bangalore, I don't remember the year, they actually, believe it or not, to cut down the customers from coming to the branch and actually make them go to the ATMs, they started charging a 50 rupee fee per teller for a physical interaction. I don't know how many of you know that. I was like, zapped. I mean, why are you saying no to customers if you don't want to meet them? But then they said, we have spent a fortune on the ATMs, we want you to go there. So I think things have changed, or maybe that's the reason we don't have much Citibank anymore. Whatever. Okay, next question, please.
Okay, so my question, hi, I'm Parth.
Somebody here. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm Parth. My question is, so you mentioned a jack of all trades, a master of none, oftentimes better than a master of one. I think isn't it a little limited to look at that approach, because I think this is very limited to a few professionals at the top of the field, because it's going to cater to someone who's managing not just one aspect, but managing something more. And I think maybe multiple things. But for most people, isn't it true that they manage their specializations and into very focused fields?
So it's not true. It's not true at all because, and I can give the example of all management graduates you're gonna graduate in 2 years' time. Yes, you are going to get into something which is more specific, and you're gonna do that role, say for the first 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years. But it's very important that even in that role, and some of us spoke about the human element, right? So in any of your role, none of your role is siloed in this corporate world today. Each of your roles has to have an extensive interaction with multiple stakeholders in the organization or outside the organization. So it's very important that when you're conversing with someone from another department, if you know something about the other department, it makes your conversation that much more easier and that much more relatable. For example, if I'm part of a marketing department and I want to get, say, more a concept like pre-approved offers, right, wherein we give pre-approved offers for loans. The marketing team has to talk to the risk team to get more pre-approved offers. Now, the marketing team can get more pre-approved offers if they also understand the concepts of risk and they're able to challenge the risk folks. The same thing the risk team can also do to the marketing team. So, yes, you start with more specialized, but today, as I said, none of the role is siloed. You're going to talk to multiple stakeholders, and knowing something about everyone and everything is going to be a huge advantage for sure.
Yeah, I see where the question is coming from, and I think it's a valid question. I used to think like this. And I appreciate why this is happening, because the complexity of what he is talking about is rarely visible to the campus. This is an experiential thing. How the functions are interacting with each other, whether it's risk, investment, tax, audit, these related functions in finance. If you have to really go through that experience to believe how much of interaction and how much of sharing of thoughts and meetings have to happen. So, and that visibility you will not have in campus. No matter what you do, no matter how many internships you do, you will never get that visibility, right? You have to become a part of a corporate to understand how it works. And this is true even in marketing. Whether it's the product management, for example, there is so many functions that you have to interact with on a daily basis. You have to interact with sales team because you need to understand pricing. You need to work with engineering because you need to understand features. You need to work with marketing because you need to understand a roadmap. You need to work with customers because you need to understand budgets. You need to work with the CEO because you need approvals. And you need to work with the board because they want to agree to, if you have a large project on hand, they have to approve that as well. So you need to get everybody's consensus and then create your plan and then go live. And that visibility will only come inside an organization. So, it's easy for us with our limited thinking and exposure to believe that we can become experts and not generalists. But the fact is, if you become a super expert, you will become an isolated person, and you will be called in the corporate world as individual contributor, right? An individual contributor is a great guy. I have a roommate of mine who is now, I think, 30 years in Qualcomm, and he's an individual contributor. He's not a PhD, but he holds multiple patents. But he doesn't work with anybody. He works alone. And he used to be that way even in our rooms. So nothing to do with, nothing wrong or right about it, but you have to understand that is where you will go. And a lot of people feel that the CEO role is a generalist role. It may be true, but he's a specialist in knowing which kind of person has to be brought for which role and whose inputs he has to take to make that call. There he's a specialist. But on a day-to-day basis, he's a generalist because he gets everyone and makes it work together. Next question.
Good morning, panelists.
Morning.
So I would like to combine a couple of concepts and really ask, so you mentioned the human touch element and this idea of scale. So with technology itself. So if I want to add human touch, I do not get the benefits of scale or leverage by putting in technology. So to make myself a little clearer, so today we can interact with a bunch of people due to our mobile phones, but the interaction isn't as personal as it would be as we are talking right now face to face. So how do I really combat this? How do we really combat this? And essentially, is this a problem to be solved, or is it just a dichotomy to be managed?
Very good question. Someone wants to take it?
See, if you read the book Sapiens, okay, you will realize human beings, whatever we are today, it's not that with some of these technology we will suddenly change, okay, or our DNAs are gonna change, or suddenly our, brains will become bigger. None of that thing is gonna happen. Okay, we will continue to be humans, and we will embrace the new things as it comes. And when I say we will continue to be humans, we will never go into a world where everyone sits in a metaverse equivalent with a headphone on, with no interaction with the outside world. I don't think it is going to happen. How we are structured for thousands of years is not going to change suddenly. We will still have the desire to see another human being, meet them in person, maybe hear a real human voice and help us solve the problem. So yeah, we will, I think, eventually find out ways to, utilize technology to make the systems more efficient, so that we can utilize the time somewhere else. Okay, so this is what my view is on this.
And I think the answer to your question cannot be binary. It cannot be yes or no, right? For example, the 2 years of COVID changed the entire way corporates start working today. So they use technology to their advantage to continue functioning, to continue blossoming, and to working along with a good combination of humans as well as technology. So it's going to be a more adaptive learning, I would say, and each organization and each individual to his. For example, I'm again slightly old school, since I passed out almost a decade before he passed out. So I believe more in human touch. I hate, or I don't like meetings on video conferences or Teams. But people are changing, and along that we also have to change, right? So that's something we have to be cognizant of.
So I'll give you a small example, and this has happened to me, and maybe you've seen it also. So let's just paint this scenario. You had lunch at 2 p.m. and you've been busy at work, at college, and you've not had anything in between. And it's 10:30 by the time you get back home or to your hostel room, and you order from Swiggy, for example, and the guy doesn't show up for 45 minutes. So Swiggy has had this amazing level of automation because they have bots on the app that will talk to you. You can track the guy, you know where the food is, where it's been picked up, is delivering it or not, and so on, right? So it's a lot of automation that's already happened. And it's already 11:15, 45 minutes, and you're starving. Do you want to talk to a bot, or do you want to talk to a human? I don't know what you would prefer, but that is reality today. So the question is, if
the answer will be Swiggy will prefer bot, we will prefer human.
exactly, right? So I think there's a point where you need human empathy, human connection to solve issues. And I don't know if it's a pure, the thing about automation and the scale that you're talking about is it's perfect if everything is working well. If something is not working well, then I do not know if the ability of the systems today to fix that is satisfactory or not. Anyway, I'm not sure if there's a correct answer to that question, but let's hope, I don't know if there's an answer to that question really. But it was interesting, but it was thought-provoking. All right. Any other question?
Yeah, in fact, let's take 2-3 questions at once, and then let's try to answer all of it together if we can basket it together.
Depending on how much time we have, yeah.
Good morning, panelists. My name is Amitesh Ray, and I have a bit of off-topic question for you guys, and I would like to know your opinion on that. So I am from Calcutta, and back in rural Calcutta, I have seen that many businessmen, like as you said, are entrepreneurs, right? And they are doing all the stuffs themselves, like marketing, sales, finance, everything. Even my father's generation and my uncles, they are also into that, and they are making good revenues. But I think where they are getting stuck is that in delegation, they can't delegate their stuff. Like if I tell them that bring a marketing guy and he can do it better for you, he will doubt. He will not say that I can completely depend upon it. So I would like to know your views on how this problem of delegation can be sought out in a more ground level.
Okay, hello sir, myself Chirashvi. So we were talking about startup and corporate culture. So I just want to know, initially years when we start working in a startup and all, then does it get us ready or does it prepare us for the corporate culture? In like suppose in 5 years initially, I want to work in a startup company and then I want to shift to corporate culture, quick MNC corporate cultures. So am I trained well to lead the corporate culture working in a startup or big MNCs and all?
Okay, sure. So on delegation, okay, another very important question, competency. Okay, we would have spoken about it in bits and pieces. There is a competency called, and it is there in one of our title competencies as well, influence for impact. Okay, and to do that, the currency that we use is trust. Okay, so I think before delegation and everything comes in, trust is a very important thing to build. If you are able to build trust with all stakeholders, give them the freedom, and at the same time, if you can set some boundaries that, see, don't worry about the mistakes, I am here to help you out, and if you do something good, we will celebrate, and so I think those kind of things, if you are able to drive with people, people would be more happy to work with you and they will trust you more, and even after delegation, I think they will put in the extra effort to align to your goals, provided they trust you and they believe in your vision, right? So I think influencing people for impact through the currency of trust will solve most of the challenges of people management.
Sorry, one word of caution for delegation, right? You don't practice that in your MBA curriculum, right? You practice that only when you get into corporate. Please don't practice. In our time, we used to have a word called as, I don't know, free riders, right? So, yeah, so please ensure you don't practice delegation in your 2 years of MBA. You practice that when you do. It's an art, it's a science. I think as you get into a corporate, you'll understand the art of delegation. It works to your advantage at some point in time, but it also the person whom you are delegating, how he's perceiving it as. If he's perceiving it as a challenging task, it's good. But if he's perceiving it as a mundane task, he might lose the faith and lose the thing what Anubrata said. So it's both an art and science which you will learn over the years.
Okay, so I'll move to that question. So I'll try and put some response there. I think it's a good question coming from the fact that many of you may actually end up in startups post this to begin the career. Now it's very hard to predict what kind of culture a company will have, especially if you're talking about larger corporates. So I would focus on, in your startup phase, as you graduate and let's say it's your first job, you focus on skills. You become so good at your skills and your application of skills that you become more valuable in the market. And as you do that, let's say over 3 years or 4 years, if that has been created well, you will be asked, you'll get invitations or you'll have opportunities to work with corporates. At that time, you will have this question of, I have these skills and I'm all this capable, but is the culture going to allow me to work? Now, this is a very hard thing because cultures largely is very, very personalized to a company. You cannot, even if you look at financial corporations, I'm pretty sure that some elements of culture will be unique to that particular company. By the way, culture doesn't necessarily mean bad things. It could be good. Startups largely have a certain culture of chaos. I've been entirely all my life, after my first job, I was with startups. Startups means chaos. That itself becomes a culture. So a lot of startup people, even if they're talented, they will end up not feeling comfortable in corporates because of cultural clash. For example, imagine you can walk into the CEO's office and pull up a chair and start talking to him, discussing something. But in a corporate, you may have to go through a certain structure. And you may not even be able to address some of them by first name. So it will become a revolt. You may not like it. So you need to be sensitive to that. But don't try to change culture. If you will fail, the company will reject you. So do some research about it. And the only way to do that is talk to people who are already working there. And if you feel fundamentally that these are not good things, then you may not even opt to stay out. I know some people in the US, for example, who actually some companies allow you to come and spend a day or two before you start working to get a hang of the culture. I don't know if they do that in India, but they definitely do it in the US. So that's a sensitive matter, but you be aware of it before making the call. I have a time limit, so if there's any other question, maybe if there's an opportunity to do it offline, and I will regretfully have to close it because it's been an enriching conversation. Thank you so much. Highly appreciate your participation. And thanks to both my panelists as well.
My sincere thanks go to Mr. Anubrata Mukherjee and Mr. Natarajan Ramani for the engaging discussions. I'm sure our students have gained insights from your experienced words, which would help them in their career path. Special thanks to Mr. Sridhar Pai for both your expertise in the topic of discussion and the convincing moderation of the discussion. May I now request Professor Durga Prasad to present the memento to the panelists and the moderator as our token of respect. Mr. Natarajan Ramani. Mr. Anubrata. Mr. Sridhar Pai. Thank you so much, sirs.